Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Well, here we are again.
We are here in a very different podcasting room, in a very different platform. However, I feel like it's going to be better than being at our house.
And it's still temporary.
It is temporary. We are actually, if you listen to Crime Bitches, we are sitting in Sierra's house because our house is so empty that the echo is just unreal. And I recorded Crime Bitches with Sierra the other day, and I decided this room's better than the room at our house. So we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, we still have to keep leaving the house for people to come take a look at the house. So we just figured it was better to leave the stuff here and do it over here.
And just do it over here. So
until we find our own place.
True story. And so I will apologize now, though, because our setup is very different. I am holding the microphone. So if you hear little bumbly microphones, that is me. I don't know what happened. We had 2 tripods for our microphones and I can't find one of them. And so I am holding it. Hopefully we'll find the tripod and then we'll be able to fix that. But this is kind of reminiscent because we're sitting at desks staring at each other. This is reminiscent of how Fatal Blend started, actually. We used to sit across from each other on desks before too. So we're just going back to the old school.
Yep. And you might hear some weird noises in the background of us hitting the desk or moving or anything like that.
Yeah, it's all new.
We're trying to get used to it.
We are.
And just about the time we'll get used to it, we'll switch it up again.
Of course. So we'll just get right into it. So I guess it's my turn to say, what are you drinking today? Oh, wait, no, stop. Collaborate and listen.
Right. How about we start off with...
Hi.
Hello. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
And we're here to talk about...
Serial killers.
Killers.
That's what we're here for. And we normally start all of our episodes by talking about what are we drinking? So, Jay, what are you drinking today?
I'm trying to stay hydrated, which for people who have listened to the podcast before, I'm not a big fan of H2O. So I have water, but with Crystal Light in it. Because I need flavor. Because I'm weak.
At least you say it, not me. I am actually drinking a Stormio Nespresso pod with 1 stevia and coconut cream creamer. And I'm going to tell you that Stormio, it's a dark roast, but I'm not mad at it. It's pretty good. Jay wanted to get it, which I don't understand why, because he puts so much sugar, like sugary stuff in his coffee.
Because sometimes I like the darker roast
and
with all the sugary stuff.
It really has a good coffee flavor. So now that we've discussed what we are drinking for this lovely podcast, I guess we'll get into who
what are we talking about?
Who
are we
talking about? So this week we are talking about a woman.
Poison.
No.
Ooh.
No. We are talking about a woman named Dorothea Puente. Okay, and for anyone who wants to know, if we had video right now, you'd see that we have a guest host with us, but you won't hear her.
3 of them, technically.
We do technically have 3 of them, but one of them is legit sitting with us right now in a chair next to Jay, and that is our dog, Oreo. She is an 11-year-old lady, and she gets really uncomfortable really quickly, and so she decided she wanted to hop on the chair next to Jay. So she's here, but I mean, you might hear her because she likes to whine, and sometimes she whines while we're talking, and I cannot. And I will not cut those things out. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. So we are talking about Dorothea Puente. Dorothea has 9 to 15 victims. Her murder dates are 1982 to 1988. Her location of murders is in Sacramento, California. Her method of murder.
I'd already guessed poison, so I was wrong.
No, I mean, you're okay. Technically, you're right, but it's like overdosing on medication. However, there is a belief she also strangled. So if you want to count overdosing medication as poison, we shall. And then a characteristic of her murders is robbery. So Dorothea was born Dorothea Gray, January 9th, 1929 in Redlands, California. And her parents were Jesse James Gray and Trudy Mae Gray.
Trudy.
If anybody watches Chicago PD, tell me that Trudy's not your favorite.
Trudy's our jam.
She's our favorite. Both of her parents were also severe alcoholics, which is always just disastrous. Now, her father would also repeatedly threaten to kill himself. Sometimes he would even hold a gun to his head in front of his children, threatening to kill himself. Fucking traumatic. Now, in 1937, her father dies of tuberculosis, and she's actually 8 years old when he dies. In 1938, her mother ends up losing custody of her children. Now, there are mixed reports of how many children were in this family, but it's anywhere from 6 to 7. So she was either 6 of 7 children or 5 of 6 children. But there's quite a large, I mean, that's a kind of a large family.
She was the second oldest.
I don't know.
Oh, I thought just the way you were saying it made it sound like she was the
No,
second
I'm just
oldest.
saying that we just know that much about it. Now, in 1938, her mother loses custody of all of her children. And actually, by the end of 1938, her mother dies in a motorcycle accident. So Dorothea and her siblings are sent to live in an orphanage. And there are reports that she was sexually abused during her time living in the orphanage. In 1945, Dorothea is now 16 years old. And she decides she's going to marry somebody named Fred McFall. Now, Fred McFall was a soldier who had just gotten back from World War II, and the two of them get married. Now, she does go on to have 2 daughters with him, and she actually sends one of her daughters to go live with relatives in Sacramento, and she places the other one up for adoption. I actually don't think she wanted children ever, to be honest with you. In 1948, her marriage with Fred ends because he leaves her. For whatever reason. There's not like a reason that they tell us, but he obviously did not want to be with her for any whatever reason. During that same year, she is arrested not too long after he leaves her, actually, and she is convicted of forging checks. Now, she serves 6 months of a 12-month sentence at that time. And after her release, she ends up getting pregnant by a man that she doesn't really have a relationship with. I kind of view this as like a really short fling or maybe like even a one-night stand type situation. And as soon as the baby is born, she puts the baby up for adoption. Again, I don't think she wanted children.
Yeah.
Ever. Now, in 1952, Dorothea marries again. Now, this time she marries a man named Axel Johnson. And their marriage was turbulent as hell and tumultuous as fuck. And they had it rough. However, their marriage lasts for 14 years. Now, by 1960, she is arrested for managing and owning a bookkeeping firm. So she owns this.
So like gambling?
Well, no. It's a bookkeeping firm, but it's actually a front to a brothel.
Oh. Well,
so she's
that makes
arrested
sense.
for that. And she is sentenced to, for running a brothel in 1960,
6 months in jail.
90 days.
Ooh.
You're Now, as soon as she is released, she is actually arrested again. And this time she is arrested for vagrancy. And she is sentenced to another 90 days in jail. In 1961, Axel has her committed for a very short time to DeWitt State Hospital. Now, this was after she had been binge drinking. She had been lying about a bunch of stuff. She had developed even more criminal behaviors. And Axel was like, ma'am. And she had actually attempted suicide. So he was kind of like, you need some help. So he actually has her committed to the state hospital. Now, after she's released from the state hospital and the prisons and all the things that she's done, she goes on to work as a nurse's aide, and she feels and deems herself as somebody who is capable of taking care of elderly people and disabled people in their homes. So she goes and learns how to do this, and she goes into people's homes and she basically takes care of them in their homes. So she's not working at like a facility. She's like a home nurse. But she works with a nurse, like under a nurse, like she's not doing it by herself. And not too long after she is learning how to do the nurse's aide thing, she actually then moves on to managing boarding houses in general. I mean, she felt like she could take care of people. So she decided she would become I don't know, back in the day, boarding houses, there was lots of different people that would go through boarding houses, but she literally would just manage them. Now, in 1966, Dorothea and Axel get divorced, and she goes on and she finds her next husband, Roberto Puente. Now, he is 19 years younger than her, and their marriage actually only lasts for 2 years. And after their marriage ends, Dorothea ends up taking over a 16-bedroom care home in Sacramento. Now, she does marry again in 1976, and this time it's to a man named Pedro Montalvo. He is a violent alcoholic, and their marriage ends within a couple of weeks. Like, they're not even together within a couple weeks. Now, Dorothea begins to hang out in bars. She's looking for older men who are receiving some sort of benefits, mostly Social Security benefits. And what she would do is she would meet these men, she would flirt it up with them, and then somehow, some way, she would be able to forge their signature on like their checks and steal their money from them. Now, December 21st, 1978, she actually ends up getting arrested for this, and she is charged with 34 counts of treasury fraud, and she receives 5 years of probation, and she is ordered to pay $4,000 in restitution. Now, at this point, she has been arrested multiple times for things like this, forgery and whatever, so the fact that she got 5 years probation and that was it was a little strange. Now, Dorothea ends up moving into an apartment. I say apartment, but to be honest with you, it's a house. So I don't know why it was brought up as an apartment. That's just what they reported it as, but it's a fucking house. Now, what she wanted to do with this home is she wanted to open up a home to take care of people with mental illnesses and substance abuse problems. Because again, she feels like she's a really good caretaker. Other people actually felt like she was a really good caretaker too.
Or that's just her way to get close to people so she can.
Well, I mean, up until this point, up until this point, like, she has not killed anybody. But I mean, I would venture to guess that she thought she was a good caretaker of elderly because she knew she could take their Social Security benefits. And by the way, at this time, she is like, at this time, she's almost 50 years old. So she's not like young. And a lot of people that worked to her advantage because she was like this older woman who liked to take care of people. So many people who lived in her area actually eventually, as they get to know her, they actually recommend boarders to her. So they'll come to her and be like, hey, there's this person. They're looking for a place. Can they come stay with you? And so she kind of, and people, they all thought that she was this really sweet old lady, because she was a sweet old lady. On January 16th, 1982, Dorothea meets Malcolm McKenzie, who is 74, and she's in a bar. She meets him. Now, she accompanies him back to his apartment, and he later comes out and claims that Dorothea had drugged him by slipping something into his drink. She then robbed him of his coin collection, watches, and other jewelry, including a diamond ring that was his mother's, that he said she had actually removed from his finger while he was incapacitated.
So he was wearing his mom's ring?
Like on his pinky, probably. Now, on April 28th, 1982, Ruth Monroe, who is 61, moves into the apartment with Dorothea. Now, shortly after this, she ends up dying from an overdose of acetaminophen and codeine. Dorothea is asked about this by the police, the police ask her, like, how did this happen? To which Dorothea tells them, well, Ruth had been really depressed because her husband is terminally ill. And so I think that might have something to do with it. So her death is originally determined as an undetermined overdose. However, it is later changed to homicide. But for a very, good fucking 6 years, it was considered almost like accidental overdose.
Yeah, until they realized other people around her were accidental overdosing. And so they put 2 and 2 together and decided to change it.
Now, on May 16th, 1982, Dorothy Osborne, who is 49, she discovers that she has checks, credit cards, and other missing items from her home. Now, this is shortly after Dorothea had visited her and made her drinks. Now, this leads to her reporting Dorothea. And Dorothea actually gets charged and convicted of 3 grand theft charges. She receives 5 years in prison for this. Now, a few weeks after the death of Ruth, the police show up again at the apartment. And this time they're investigating a complaint that was made by Malcolm McKenzie. Remember Malcolm, the one who had the ring taken off his finger?
Yep.
Now, she is arrested for that as well. She is charged and convicted on August 18th, 1982. Now, according to everything I've read, these are 2 times that she was convicted and she was sentenced to 5 years for each of them. Now, if you do the math on that, this was 1982. She should have been out in 1992, right? Now, during her time behind bars, she starts to talk to a man named Everson Gilmeth. Now, he's 77 years old. He lives in Oregon. And they're kind of talking about like what, I guess she's starting a relationship with him. Talking about what she's going to do when she gets out in the 90s.
Basically pen pals.
Yeah.
And
And which happens all the time. Like, okay. Then she gets released from prison in 1985. That's not 10 years.
No.
That's not 10 years. So just keep that in mind. She gets released.
When they sentence people, they should say like up to 10 years.
I think if you're going to sentence somebody to 10 years and you're like, don't give them 10 years if you're not going to give them 10 years.
Yeah, that's why I think
like,
they
just,
should
I don't
say
give a shit.
we're going to sentence you up to 10 years because you'll most likely get out before that.
Honestly, for her, I think it's because she was a little old lady and they thought she was really sweet. And so they just let her out. That's what I honestly think. And I think that's how this whole entire thing is like that.
I've seen Orange is the New Black. Sweet old ladies aren't really sweet.
She's not sweet. But anyways, so he's there. He shows up outside of the prison when she is released, and he is there to pick her up in his red Ford pickup. They move in together. They begin making wedding plans, and they're ready to live their life. Now, in November of 1985, Dorothea hires a man named Ismael Flores, and she hires him to do some renovations on her home, like installing wood paneling and kind of just doing some handiwork around the house. Now, while he's there, she also asks him if he can build her a 6-foot by 30-inch by 30-inch storage box that she wanted to store books and knickknacks and things like that in.
Or a body. Come on, lady.
And she tells him, in return for you doing this, I will give you $800. Also, see that red Ford pickup truck? I'll give it to you. It's my boyfriend's. He doesn't need it anymore because he moved down south like LA area. And he told me he doesn't need it anymore. So I'll give you the truck and $800 if you will build me this box and finish this stuff. To which, of course, he's like, yeah, okay, cool. So then a couple days after the box is built, he comes back to her home because he's doing shit. Like he's doing shit around her house. And he realizes that the box is no longer empty, or at least he doesn't think it is because it's nailed shut. And so he's like, whatever. And then she says to him like, hey, I was wondering if you could maybe help me bring this box over to, wasn't like a storage unit, but she said to a storage facility. I don't know if they had storage units back in the 80s. They probably did. And so she was like, I need help moving it. It's really heavy. And he's like, yeah, okay. So he goes to help her pick it up. It is estimated that this box weighed 300 pounds.
Oh,
I'm going to tell you right now, I've been moving
That's a lot of books.
I can't even pick up 70 pounds. So 300 pounds, I don't know how some old ass 50-something-year-old lady. I say that, but I know I'm like 45. So like, I'm really not that far off. Anyways, so he helps her. He puts this extremely heavy box in the back of the truck and they start driving. Now, as they're driving down the highway, Dorothea tells him like, hey, you know what? Pull over here. Let's just dump the box into the riverbank right here. And now I know that sounds strange, but the place that she had him pull over to was like an unofficial dumping site. So it wasn't like she just pulled over and was like, dump this. She said like, hey, you know what? Instead of going all the way to storage unit, I don't really care about the shit in here. I just needed it out of my house. Let's pull over. Let's just dump it over by that riverbank. And he's like, okay. So he does. And January 1st of 1986, a fisherman actually comes across this box. And he's very suspicious of this box because it smells funny. It looks weird.
And it looks like it's the size of a body.
Yeah, and it's heavy. So he calls the police. So the police come out, they open the box, and inside the box they find a badly decomposed body. This was of an elderly man who was wrapped in plastic, and there was a ton of those toilet deodorizers that you hang over the toilet inside this box.
They must have ran out.
Now, he remained unidentified for 3 years, but eventually it is found out that this is the body of Everson Gilmeth.
Oh, go figure.
Now, fall of 1986, Betty Mae Palmer, who's 78, she arrives at Dorothea's home. And in October of 1986, Dorothea gets a California ID with Betty's information on it, but it's her picture. And 2 months after she obtains this California ID, Betty's Social Security checks were sent to a new address, which happened to be Dorothea's home. Dorothea had cashed nearly $7,000 of her checks. Now, October 21st, 1986, Dorothea summons a notary to the hospital room of Leona Carpenter, who is 78 years old. Now, Leona had actually suffered an overdose. And while she was in the hospital bed recovering, kind of not maybe within the right frame of mind, she gives power of attorney to Dorothea. Now, within 10 days of Dorothea getting power of attorney, Leona's Social Security checks are being cashed by Dorothea. Later, Leona is discharged from the hospital and she does go to live with Dorothea. And in February of 1987, she disappears. Also in February of 1987, James Gallup, who's 62, moves into Dorothea's home. Now in July, a tumor is found in his colon and he agrees to his doctor that he will go get further testing done to see if it's something that they can handle. However, at some point before his appointment, Dorothea calls the doctor and says, oh, he's not going to be coming to that appointment because he left to Los Angeles indefinitely. He will not be returning. So you can just cancel all of his future appointments. In July of 1987, Eugene Gamble, he is 58. He is actually found dead in his home of apparent suicide. He had overdosed on amitriptyline and ethanol. Now, Dorothea just happened to be Eugene's landlady. And she had told the police that, oh, yeah, Eugene has had a history of attempted suicides. Now, to this day, Dorothea has never been charged with the death of Eugene Gamble. However, it is very highly suspected that she is actually the reason that he is dead. Then on October 2nd, 1987, Vera Faye Martin, she's 61, she is sent to go live with Dorothea. Now, by October 19th, 1987, so this is literally like 17 days later, she is no longer contacting her daughter. And this date specifically stands out because this is her daughter's birthday and she does not call her daughter on her birthday. She is missing. October 21st, 1987, Dorothy Miller, she's 65. She moves into Dorothea's home. And within weeks of her arrival, she also disappears.
Did she have an ad out on like Craigslist or something? Like
she had multiple rooms in this house. Right. And at any given time, she had multiple people living, which is what's really crazy is multiple people lived in her homes and she's killing people in her home as they're living there. Now, November 20th. Oh, no. And actually, it's because, like I said, the neighborhood would send people to her. Like she would talk to the neighbors and be like, oh, yeah, I have a room available. And they're like, oh, well, you know what? I got a friend, Dorothy. She's looking for a place. Why don't I send her to you? So she was literally given her victims by other people pretty much. Now, November 20th, 1987, Dorothea hires a carpet cleaner. Now, she tells her tenants, because there's a few tenants here at this time who are like, well, this is strange. She tells them, oh, no, there's this really slimy area in where Dorothy is living that I need to get rid of. And it's got a really, really gross room, but it's in Dorothy's room. So don't worry about it. Now, at this time, people might even think Dorothy is still living there. They just haven't seen her in a while. So she's cleaning out Dorothy's room for her. Now, Dorothea does continue to cash checks made out to Dorothy in the total of $11,000. On November 29th, 1987, Brenda Trujillo, she sends a letter to the Social Security office. Now, her claim in this letter is that Dorothea had been stealing her Social Security checks. She said that she had met Dorothea in 1982 while they were in jail. She said after her release, she had moved into Dorothea's house. And she claimed that while she lived there, she had been drugged by Dorothea. And she said then she had to take her drug test for her part of her parole. And she failed her drug test. She was tested positive. And what that did was that revoked her ability to receive her benefits. So somehow, some way, Dorothea ends up getting those benefits instead. Then in February 1988, Alvaro Gonzalez Montoya, he's 51, and he arrives at Dorothea's home. Now, by March, an application has been put in to designate Dorothea as the payee of his benefits, which sounds strange, but Alvaro, he was schizophrenic and he suffered from some serious mental health issues. So having somebody be the person who's in control of his finances would not be a red flag, right? And he was letting the person that he was taking care of him in her care home, right? Her boarding house where she's taking care of all these people. So it was just kind of like, okay. Now, Alvaro was last seen in August of 1988. Now, Dorothea had told people that he had left to visit family in Mexico. Social workers had actually also been trying to contact Alvaro. And it gets to a point where Dorothy asks a man named Donald Anthony, who was also a former convict that she knew from jail, that if he would be willing to call the social workers back and pretend to be Alvaro's brother-in-law and let him know that like he's fine, but I'm calling on his behalf. To which Donald's like, yeah, sure. So Donald calls them and he basically says, hey, yeah, I am his brother-in-law. He is fine, but I will tell you, he no longer lives at Dorothea's house. We've actually moved him to a different boarding facility, a different care home in Utah. And so the social worker was like, well, that seems very suspicious because Dorothea is still getting the checks and there has not been any sort of information with a change of address or a change of where his checks are going to go. And so that was the social worker starts to be like, oh, that doesn't really sound right. Now, on March 9th, 1988, Benjamin Fink, he's 55. He is sent to live with Dorothea. Now, his brother would literally visit him on a regular basis, like weekly. By the end of April, Benjamin was gone. He was nowhere to be found. And there was actually another tenant that lived in the home who would complain to Dorothea about a foul odor coming from Benjamin's room. Now, Dorothea had actually told that same tenant that, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry for that smell. That is literally a sewage backup that I'm trying to get fixed.
Got an excuse for everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, on April 29th, Dorothea receives 12 bags of cement at her home. By June of 1988, she has now hired someone to dig this giant hole in her yard. And this hole is later filled with concrete. Now, neighbors start to become suspicious because Dorothea had hired a local man to do this digging. He went by the name Chief. Everybody knew who he was. Now, he also, not only did he dig the hole and fill it with concrete, he also reportedly took down her entire garage, like it was a detached garage. And he took that whole entire garage down and installed a brand new slab of concrete there as well. And then, not long after this is done, Chief goes missing.
Weird.
So the neighbors are kind of like, oh, what the hell's going on here? Now, a social worker does end up notifying the police of the disappearance of Alvaro because this social worker, like I said, has been sitting there going, something's not right. I've received no paperwork. We have no change of address. All of his checks are still going to Dorothea. And so she notifies the police that something is kind of off. So the police head to the property of Dorothea's on November 11th, 1988. Now, they talk to Dorothea and they talk to some of the other tenants. And he's saying, like, listen, we're trying to find Alvaro because, his brother is looking for him. The social workers are looking for him. And Dorothea says, oh, he went to go visit people in Mexico or, whatever. All of the tenants, they talked to the tenants. Most of them actually had said that we just saw Alvaro like 2 days ago. Like, I think he just went on a trip to go visit family in Mexico, but we just saw him. And then one of these tenants actually ends up slipping a note to the officers. And the note said, she wants me to lie to you. To which then the officers later set up a meeting with this same tenant. And this guy tells them everything.
Just spills the beans.
Basically tells them, not that she's necessarily killed people, because I don't think any of them know she killed anybody, but basically says, like, these people come and go fairly quickly. They'll show up and then, like, they won't be there. As far as Alvaro goes, I haven't seen him since August of last year. Like, these are kind of because we're in November. I haven't seen him since August, but she told us to tell you it's been a couple of days, right? So he ends up telling them all these things. So they decide, okay, this is enough for us to kind of go back and really question. So they go back to Dorothea's house and they knock on the door and they basically tell her, ma'am, we would like to search your property. They brought some shovels, or I'm sorry, they brought some sticks that they were going to put in the ground, and they were going to pick a couple places that they wanted to dig up. And she looks at them and she's like, you want to what? And the officer's like, we would like to search your property. We're planning on digging up some of your property. Is that okay? And Dorothea stares him dead in his face and goes, I guess, dig up whatever you want to. That's fine. So they do. They actually decided they were only going to dig. They decided they're going to dig in 3 different places to see if they could find anything. And what they're kind of looking at is that there are some of the areas in the yard look like they were more recently disturbed than others. So I think that's kind of what they chose. Well, as they pick into one of the areas, they discover a human bone. And they come to find out later that this is actually this bone belongs to the body of Leona Carpenter. Now, obviously, this triggers for them to really start looking into her property. And she's over there like this. What? I don't understand where that came from. So she absolutely has no idea why there would be bones buried in her yard. So they decide, okay, we're gonna just like look through your whole property. They end up finding the bodies of Betty Mae Palmer, James Gallup, Vera Faye Martin, Dorothy Miller, Alvaro Montoya, and Benjamin Fink, along with Leona Carpenter. In total, they find 7 bodies on her property.
Where's Chief?
Nothing about Chief. Now, that doesn't mean that she did. I actually wonder if Chief left town after he realized what he was doing, like building areas for her to put bodies. So some of them were found in the dirt and some of them were found under the concrete slabs. Now, while this is going on at Dorothea's home, she decides, well, they're looking for bodies, so I'm just going to go ahead and walk away. So she leaves the home. She leaves. I don't know why they didn't arrest her.
They go to knock back on the door. They're like, she's gone.
The minute they found the bones, I don't know why they arrested her, but she most definitely left. And they didn't find her until November 13th or November 16th, which is 3 days later. And she's found in a motel in Los Angeles. And she's only found there because this guy who is a reporter happened to see her in front of the motel and was like, I know that girl. Oh my God, she's the one that the police are, because they put out a huge APB on her and shit. And it's like, oh my God, you guys. Now she is obviously arrested and she is charged with 9 murders. Now her trial started October 1992 and it took 1 year for her trial to be over. There were over 130 witnesses called, and the prosecution claimed that she would drug the tenants until they were unconscious and then she would suffocate them and dispose of their bodies, most of them in her yard. The defense, however, called several witnesses to testify to the fact that she had a kind nature, a generous manner. She was like a grandma. She was like everybody's old grandma. This did not work.
A grandma who kills.
Well, this did not work because many of their witnesses that they would say things like, she's kind, she's gentle. When prosecution would cross-examine, they would ask do you believe or have you seen an evil side to her? And many of them said, oh yes, she definitely has an evil side.
Bitch is crazy.
So it did not work out in their favor. The jury ends up convicting her of 3 of the 9 murders that she is charged with. However, they cannot reach a decision on the other 6, and it leads to a mistrial of those 6. So it is declared, because they're sent back and being like, can you sit down and re-examine and come up with a different thing? They could not come to a unanimous decision on the other 6. So it ends up being a mistrial. So as a result of this, she is actually sentenced to life without parole. I don't know why they didn't just retry the 6. I would guess that because she was guilty of the 3 and she got life without parole, there was no reason to try her for the rest of them. She was then sent to Central California Women's Facility, where she continued to sit in her cell and live out her sentence. Now, Dorothea continued to maintain her innocence for literally the rest of her life. She insisted that her tenants, all of them, had died by natural causes, even though when the bodies were found, they did toxicology on their brain matter and on their skin and all kinds of things. And they showed that every single one of them had either had a mass amount of drugs in their body or had at least drugs in their brain tissue, which would have led to them dying. So they did not die of natural causes at all. That can be proven. So on March 27th, 2011, Dorothea died of natural causes. She was 82 years old.
I mean, I think she could still get in trouble even if they did die of natural causes.
She hid the bodies.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel the same way. If they really did die of natural causes.
And all the money she
cut
took.
up some of their bodies.
Yeah.
She cut some of their bodies up and buried them. So, but I mean, how do you explain the people that weren't your tenants dying?
Right.
Right. So it's kind of one of those, do I believe that she killed them? Yes. Do I believe there was actually one psychologist who came out and said after he met with her, he had said, you know, she's a very pleasant person and she's very charming. And he said, and actually a lot of people actually agree with this. They said that they think that she would overdose them and keep them drugged so she could cash their checks. And if they started to disobey or started to fight against her, she'd kill them. That's what they actually think she was doing. I actually agree with that based off of something you're going to find out in the shots, and it's based off something she specifically says. Speaking of shots, do you want to hear them?
Absolutely.
Okay. So after Everson Gilmuth, you remember he's the one that with the red Ford truck. So after his death, Dorothea continued to mail cards and letters to his sister in an attempt to make her think that her brother was still alive. So again, if you did not kill him, why in the hell are you writing to his sister as if he was still alive? It was also discovered that Dorothea had been forging and cashing Everson's benefit checks until 1986. He was killed in like 1985.
I was going to say, that's quite a bit of checks.
So again, why? Now, Dorothea has been featured on many different true crime shows. She's been featured on Crime Stories, Deadly Women, A Stranger in My Home, and World's Most Evil Killers. And in 1998, Dorothea began to exchange letters with a man named Shane Bugbee. Now, as a result of these letters, there is a recipe book that is called Cooking with a Serial Killer that was published in 2004. In this book, there is an interview with Dorothea. There's artwork that Dorothea made while in prison, and there's about 50 recipes that Dorothea had put into this book. Now, in 2013, the Sacramento Old City Association, they actually hold a home tour. You know, like the
tour of homes?
Yes, they did like a tour of homes. Well, her home happened to be included on this tour of homes. And people literally did get to go walk like through her home in 2013 or 13, which again, she wasn't living there. So obviously
I'd have done it.
Now in 2015, the house is opened up to the public for one day for tour groups while a documentary is being filmed there. Then in 2017, the house was investigated by Zach Bagans and his ghost hunting team, and a psychic medium was brought there. And it is actually on one of the episodes of Ghost Adventures. Now the house is still standing to this day. And as far as I can tell, somebody actually owns the home and lives there. Hence the reason I did not give out the address, because
creepy.
The address is everywhere. And I was going to give out the address, but I was like, I want to make sure that they like tore the house down before they did it. No, they didn't tear the house down. I literally Zillowed it and saw the house and saw like the purchase history. I mean, the last time the house was purchased was in 2010. So somebody's absolutely living there, or they're renting it out to somebody. But at the end of the day, there's a good chance that they do not know that this house was a murder house in the 60s. Or not that, I guess it was the 80s. In the 80s, right? Because it's passed through so many hands.
You don't want them to find out through our podcast. Or people showing up.
Like, if you really want to know it, you can just Google Dorothea's crime and it'll tell you. But I was not going to put the house on blast, because I'm sure that they already still get people to this day that drive by the house and want to see it. But it's like, I don't want to be the person that is out there putting people's addresses out there. I'm not doxing anyone. Thank you very much. And final two shots. There was a guy who in 2009 decided he wanted to sit down and talk to Dorothea. And he wanted to kind of find out her life story. He wrote a whole entire kind of blog post, but it was actually for the Sacramento Post, the Sacramento Daily or something. So he was like a journalist, and he went and visited her. I think it was 4 times, he said. And his article is really good. It's really written really well. It gives you kind of the background of what she looks like and how her mannerisms are currently in prison, and then what she claims about her life, right? So during this time, they have multiple conversations. The first thing she actually tells him when she sits down with him, the very first day she meets him, is, I'm not guilty. That's the first thing she tells him. Then they go on to have these conversations. Well, on the fourth visit, she comes and sits down with him and she tells him that she has a list of things that she wants him to buy her that are appropriate prison gifts. And she would mail him or email him or something, the list of items. And then if he would just buy them and send them to her or bring them to the next visit, yada, 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 which in his article, he says, I had no plans on doing that. And I knew that if I told her no, she would immediately stop talking to me and she'd never talk to me again. He goes, that's how I knew this was the last time I would talk to her. He then said that he chose not to tell her no until after he was done interviewing her and left. And then when she wrote him, he basically wrote a letter back and said, I will not be buying you things. And then she cut off contact. So during that last interview, he actually says to her something about how she felt when she was sitting in the motel room in Los Angeles, watching the news of this manhunt for her, which is also showing her house with bodies being taken in body bags off of her property, to which she says, I literally wanted to kill myself. So then he responds with, I guess some people might consider that would be a confession that like you had been found, so you wanted to kill herself. And she responds by saying, first off, and when I read it, I'm not lying. You know what I'm going to say?
No.
Oh, I literally read it with a first off, fuck the bitch. And
Yeah.
click you claim.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so she said, first off, I was getting the checks. I didn't need to kill anyone. Why would I waste all of my time to get these people cleaned up, make sure they have no diseases, get all of their affairs in order if I was going to kill them? Okay, so first of all, when I hear her say that, that is why I believe what people have said. She just said it. I didn't need to kill anyone because I was doing all these things. Why would I kill them? Well, you're right. You wouldn't kill them if they were giving you the checks because you already, like she said, I was already getting the checks. But if they stopped giving you the checks, or if they started to look at you and go, I don't want to live here anymore, or if they said to you, like, I don't like your living situation, or Dorothea, I don't like the way you take care of us, now you're threatened with not having checks anymore. So
or
now you would
you're taking
potentially
my
kill
checks
them.
and I'm going to tell somebody.
Right. So when she says that, I'm like, that makes me I really do think that she did not have plans to kill people. I don't think she like woke up and was like, I'm going to kill people for my living. I think she is a fraudulent woman. But when her checks threatened to disappear in one way or another, she made sure to get rid of the person, but keep the checks coming, because she did that with all of them. And finally, in that final interview, he had asked her, what is it like being labeled a murderer? Because, she says she didn't do it. And her response is, I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks.
That's to par, I guess.
And I'm like, okay, all right then. Which is, by the way, very drastic from the first meeting with him. Because when she was in the first meeting with him and talking to him about being in prison, she cried and she said things like, I've given up hope of leaving this prison cell, so I'm going to make the best of it. So it's very different that is how the beginning.
Now she's hardened. She's like,
yeah.
Fuck your bitch and the clique you claim.
That's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker. Anyways, that's a Tupac song if anybody wants to know. I'm not actually saying that. Okay? Mind your business. Anyways, yeah. So I think that she absolutely killed because it was saving her money. It was saving her from getting rid of her money. I do not think she is that typical. I don't think she killed because she was like, oh, I love killing people. And I think that's also why she would overdose on my medication, because you just make them really, 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 really sick and then they're dead. However, like I said, there are a lot of speculation that she actually strangled them when they got to a point of being incapacitated, which is a very high possibility, especially if it's people that you think may not stick around. And if you really think about it, all of these people, it's like the people when they would come in and she would be like, she would literally start accepting their checks and then all of a sudden they would go missing within a couple months or a couple weeks. Like you said, maybe they were like, I'm going to tell my brother, like Alvaro. Maybe he was like, I'm going to tell my brother because I haven't received any checks. And now I'm realizing you're getting my checks.
And she'd be like, no, you're not.
And she's like, let me kill you and take your body in my front yard. And also, neighbors, everybody, neighbors in the world, because I know most of you are neighbors. If you see somebody digging a bunch of holes and filling them with concrete, maybe you should tell somebody. That's not a normal thing.
But my neighbors don't call on me because I just put dirt in my backyard and it looks like I'm covering a body, but it was just a hole.
But
for real, a hole.
But okay, if you see somebody digging a bunch of holes in their backyard, also
you
might want to call the cops because it's not very normal to just dig a bunch of holes in your backyard. And then to see these people who are like in the neighborhood, like, yeah, we thought it was a little strange because she was digging a bunch of holes and she was hiring people to do all this stuff. And she was tearing down her garage and having these slabs. And then she filled this one big hole with a bunch of, And it's like, well, how big was the hole? Because, 12 bags of concrete's not going to fill up that much of a hole. So like maybe enough to bury a body. If you feel that, if that's what you feel like it was, maybe you should have called the cops a long time ago. Anyways. But I also want to point out really quickly, and then we will get going. Remember, she was supposed to be in jail for 10 years. She was supposed to not get out of jail until 1990. Had she done her full 10-year sentence, she would have never killed any of those people. They'd all still be alive. Justice system at its finest.
For the win.
Anyways, if you like the things that you hear, if you like hearing us talk about serial killers, then continue to listen to us. And if you think you know anybody else out in this world that would like to hear us talk about serial killers as well, share us with them. We do appreciate when you do. And we love you guys. And we love all the support that we've had, especially during this weird time where we have not a normal podcasting time for us right now.
Nope. And we got co-hosts that are getting restless.
I know
need to go potty.
I know. I just want to live in my land of podcasts because I'm over life. Anyways, that's all. That's what we have for you. So thank you once again for listening to the story of Dorothea Puente, the woman who owned the House of Horrors boarding home.
Bum, bum, bum.
Until next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.